Okay guys, last time we learned about how to do variables in Python, which is a way to store data. Now we're going to focus on the different data types that you can store within variables in Python. The five basic ones are int, float, string, bool, and none. So let's learn about each of them. Okie dokie, so the first data type that we're going to talk about are integers, which are in other words whole numbers. This is the most basic type of data that you can store in a variable. So before I showed you guys, you can do like age is equal to 24, 69, whatever you want. These are integers because they are simply whole numbers. So I can make that as big as I want. The really cool thing about Python is that it supports massive numbers. And other traditional programming languages like maybe Java or C++, you have an integer data type, but it has size limitations. So there's essentially different types of integers. But in Python, you don't have to worry about any of that complexity. You just simply give it the number you want and it just works automatically. So we can give it an insanely massive number like that, print it out, and there's no errors if you run it. There we go. Look in the console, you can see it has the giant number. So I'm going to make it even bigger and it doesn't complain at all. Really, really cool. Of course, you can also do negative numbers. So you can do negative 69. That's still an integer because it's a negative whole number. With a numeric data type, so you can do math if you want to. We're going to have a whole video just on arithmetic operations and stuff like that. But you can do stuff like negative 120 plus 5. That's how much brain power I have. All kinds of cool stuff. If you have a really big number like my swag levels, for example, and it's just a mass of numbers, just like this, right? I don't even know what this is. I have to count the zeros. So hundreds, thousands, millions, billions. So I think that's 1 trillion. Now, when you write numbers usually on a piece of paper, you can usually just put like a comma to denote the separation between the zeros. So it's more readable. Within Python, you can essentially do the same thing, but with an underscore. So you can do underscore, 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 underscore. And now it's a much more readable number than just having it all together like that. So now if we print it out, my swag levels, press tab to autocomplete. Let's run it. Boom, we get the number. It doesn't have the underscores, but in terms of actually reading it in the code, you can read it much more easily with the underscores if you want them. Okay, so that's integers, which are whole numbers. Now we're going to move on to a different data type called floats. And floats are simply numbers with decimal points. So any number that you can come up with, if it has a decimal point in it, it's a floating point number. So for example, probably the most famous float that you're familiar with is pi. So if pi is equal to 3.14, you could do that if you want to. Or you can do a whole number. So we could do, again, age is equal to, 69. That's an integer, right? Or an int. But if we were to add a decimal by doing dot o, now it's a float. Even though it's still a whole number technically because it has a decimal, it is now a float. So to us as we're reading it, it's the same thing, but behind the scenes it's represented as a different type of data, which is a float. So let's print these out, just take a look what they look like when we print them out. So print pi, print age, let's run it. Boom, we get 3.14 and 69.0. So just like the int data type, you can pretty much just put whatever number you're trying to store or use. So I could do, for example, just print out directly this number here, and that works fine. And we learned that with integers, they can be massive, right? They can be really big numbers. Floats can also be really big in terms of their precision or how many numbers come after the decimal point, but there is a cutoff limit because there's only so much memory that you can use to represent this data behind the scenes. So if I make it really big and I print it, it gets cut off. So you can still, as you can see, that's a really precise or small number. So you can represent really small numbers in Python, but so you're probably never ever going to hit that cutoff limit when you're actually using, Python, but it's good to know that that is a thing. Floats can also be used for exponential notation. So for example, we can do my float is equal to 1.23, and then we could do e negative 4. So this is the same thing as doing 1.23 times 10 to the negative 4. So 10 to the negative 4 power. Or you could just simply say or 0.000123. So these are all the same thing. If you want to represent small numbers concisely within Python as exponential notation, you can do that, no problem. So if we print this out, my float, you can see that it appears as a normal number. Nice. So those are the two numeric data types within Python, integers and floats. Integers are again for whole numbers, and then floats is whenever you want to have a more precise number or a number with decimal points in it. The next data type I'm going to teach you guys about are strings. Strings are simply text data. We've actually been working with strings already this whole time, so anytime we print something, we said hello world. That was the very first program that we created. That is a string literal that we're providing to this print function, and it's printing out this to the console. In literal, I just mean the value itself. So instead of storing hello world into a variable and then passing it into print, we're just directly providing a string, a raw string, to the print function and printing it out. So strings can be enclosed in double quotes or single quotes, so we can change it to single quotes and it still works fine the same way. Let's print it out. Hello world, nice. So we can say something like greeting is equal to hello Python. Let's print that one out. Let's take a look. Hello Python, nice. And we're gonna have a dedicated video to learn all about strings and what you can do with them. But one thing that you can do is add strings onto other strings. It's called concatenation. So we could do, for example, greeting. We're gonna reassign greeting by using the current value of greeting and just adding onto it and saying, welcome to data types. Something like that. Let's print it and just see what we get. Hello Python, welcome to data types. Nice, it works. So yeah, that's it for strings. They're just simply text data, anything that's enclosed in a double quotes or a single quotes, and you can have whatever text inside of here. You can have numbers, all kinds of stuff. You can have emojis, whatnot, whatever you want. The next data type I want to go over is the Boolean, which is simply a data type that only has two options, true or false. In Python, they're also referred to as bools. It's just a shorthand way of saying Boolean. And so to do a Boolean, we could do, for example, has swag, and of course I have swag, so I'm going to say true. So has swag is equal to true, and we'll print has swag. Oops, has swag. Let's print it out. Take a look. Boom, true or false. Print it out. Boom. So booleans are limited, as you can see, because it's only true or false, but they're very powerful. It's pretty much the most basic type of data that you have in computer science. You know, when you get down to like the circuit level and stuff like that, it's all boolean logic. So booleans can be used for a lot of things. Even though they're pretty simple, they're really essential. So we can use booleans for all kinds of things, like checking to see if a condition is true to execute a certain piece of code. In the future, we'll be learning about how to do stuff like creating conditions that evaluate to booleans. The last data type that I don't teach you guys about for now is called none, which simply means the absence of a value. I think I spelled absence incorrectly, but that's fine. So none is useful in the situation where you know you're going to be storing something, but you don't have the value yet. So as an example, let's just say that we have a system where when you start the program, it asks the user's favorite color, right? So we know we're going to need to store the favorite color at some point. So we'll just go ahead and create the variable favorite color. And then we don't know it yet, so we're just going to give it a placeholder value of none. And we can print it out. So my favorite color, see what we get. We just get none, simple enough. But yeah, it represents the absence of a value, so we don't know the value of this variable yet, so we'll just give it a placeholder of none. And then let's just say later down the road, after a bunch of code has been ran, we then know the value, so we can then reassign the variable. We learned about variable reassignment. We can reassign it to an actual color such as blue. So now we have taken it from a assignment of none to blue as a string. Let's run it. There we go, we get blue. So those are the 5 essential data types within Python. There's some other ones out there that we'll be learning about, but these are the most fundamental ones that I want you to get started with. So first we learn about integers or ints, which are whole numbers. Then we learn about floats, which are numbers with decimal points. We learned that we can also do exponential notation with floats, which is cool. We learned about strings, which is simply text data or data within quotes. We learned about Boolean, which is a data type that only allows true or false. And then finally, we learned about none, which is a way of representing the absence of a value that we don't have yet. I want to show you guys a little trick real quick. In the future, you're going to have programs where you have, variables and you don't exactly know what type of data the variable contains. So one little trick you can do, which is kind of cool, is you can print out the type of a variable. So we can do print, and then we can use the built-in type function. It's called type. And then you want to pass in the variable that you're trying to get the type of, and that will print the type. So let's just run it, see what we get. So we see -69, and then under that we get class int. So this is telling us that the age variable currently stores a int data type. So it's kind of useful to just see that so you know like what type of data your variables are storing. Let's do the same for these other ones here. So we'll do print type of age. We'll do string, so print type of greeting. And then we'll do boolean, print type of has swag, and then print type of my favorite color. Let's try it out. Okay, so we see int, we get float, get string, str stands for string, we get bool for boolean, and then none is none type. That's it. That's all I'm going to show you guys. Those are the different data types in Python. Now in the next few episodes, we're going to be diving deeper into how we can actually use these data types within Python. So stay tuned for that. See you guys next time, and peace.